Today we are going to do some minor repair on this Estey M101 travel organ. I picked this baby up for $100 and it was in non-working condition. There's very little information about this organ online and seems to be quite rare as the brand Estey did not make many electric organs in this era. From what I gather though, it is a low-end organ produced in the mid-60s. So we're going to start with me setting up the organ for the first time in my house. When I first plugged the unit in, I was getting no power. So I'm going to start by removing the top cover of the unit. I quickly realized the issue lied within the incorrect fuse cap I was using. I had to borrow this from another machine until I could replace the whole fuse assembly. So I took a little bit of tinfoil and shimmed it in there, and that fixed the issue quickly. Okay, we are ready for business here. Let's see what kind of sounds we're getting out of the organ. As you can see here, there is a lot of erratic behavior and distortion when pressing the keys. First thing I'm going to do is some basic maintenance and get out my contact leader and clean out the potentiometers. This should always be your first step when servicing audio equipment. I also notice now that one of the keys is getting stuck when played, but we'll worry about that later. Luckily today, the issue does not deal with one of these 12 cards in the back here. There's a card for each of the notes in the octave. Instead, the issue lies within the electrical key action mechanism. Here you can see me demonstrate with a chopstick that by rubbing the contact points together, that the sound is subsequently affected. This tells me that the grounding contacts are not properly making connection and most likely have corrosion, and this makes sense because the organ was stored in a garage for many years. Here's another look at how this electrical contact is made. When these keys are pressed here, these contacts are closed, which closes the circuit and then produces a tone. We're going to need better access to these contacts, so let's start dismantling. Here you can see that the top carriage pivots, which makes this very convenient. In this shot, you can see how the contacts have significant corrosion on them. Let's continue dismantling. At this point, I realize I need to get my soldering iron out to fully remove the electrical contact assembly. I hate this because I have to wait for the iron to heat up, and I am very impatient. Here's yet another view of these contacts. Notice here that there's one singular rail that all of the individual keys close contact with. I'm assuming this is a grounding bar and not a voltage rail. I don't have the schematic handy, and frankly, it doesn't matter for this repair. My first idea was to go in with a relay burnisher to remove any corrosion on the contact points. I gave up on this about halfway and went for sandpaper wrapped around a piece of wood. This was much more aggressive, and as such I had to be careful not to completely sand through any of these small wires. Let's put a couple screws back in and do some testing to see if our work did any use. It's definitely a little better now, but I think it needs another pass with the sandpaper. It's almost there, only a few keys need some spot work, and I think we should be good. I also noticed at this point that the low C note on this organ is actually the same tone as the octave above it. This is set up this way from the factory, and this also confirms my suspicions of this being a lower end budget organ. So a little more sanding. I also had to adjust the tension of some of these contact bars on the keys with the chopstick, and I'm simply just pressing down on various points until I get the tension I need. Here I'm just testing the various tone settings, and everything seems to be in working order here. time to move on to the lower keys. There's also a hinge that allows this carriage to pivot upwards. These keys work on the same principle as the top keys, but with a slightly different mechanism. Here, I'm going to do several passes with the sandpaper until I get all keys in working condition. Everything seems about ready to rock now. I'm just doing some quick noodling to make sure all the keys are in working order. Now I'm going to get out a damp cloth and get everything squeaky clean. I'm going to start putting everything back together and doing some last minute tweaking. A little more sanding, a little more tweaking with the chopstick again. So once I get everything back together, I realized that I forgot to fix that stuck key, so everything must come off again. I tried taking the key off, but that was no use. I realized that the issue lied beneath instead. And this is when I make a big blunder and a big no-no. I accidentally ground the on-off switch and popped the fuse in the unit. And this is precisely why you disconnect your units from power when you're servicing them. Thank God for fuses, folks, because I could damage something. The reason I wanted to take this off was because of this piece of tape, and that is actually what is catching the key. So I'm going to remove the corner of that piece of tape. I'm also going to super glue this felt that was falling off, and we should be good to go. I was also curious to see how accurate the keys were, and they were all spot on. So it's time to get groovin'. All in all, this was an easy repair. It was just a bit tedious and time consuming. This video was reduced down from about 4 hours of work. There was a lot of more head scratching than this video suggests. I think the important thing to note here is that a lot of repairs that I make on audio equipment is really simple stuff that anyone with a slight understanding of electronics can figure out. I'm quite curious to see if you folks are interested in seeing these types of repair videos, so please let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and remember to get funky. Seacrest out.
Yeah.